Hey everyone, so today we're going to look at how to use different pieces of equipment. These are pieces of lab equipment that you'll be using throughout the year or will be referencing throughout the year. And so we need to take a look at how to use each of these pieces of equipment, and we're going to tie that into the idea of precision and accuracy while you're taking measurements for any of the labs, for any of the chemistry stuff that we're doing. All right, so here up on the table, these are really the main things that you'll be using whenever we do labs, whenever we're dealing with chemicals, measuring out chemicals. It'll be one of these three things, because really these two right here, these are the same thing. All right, here we just have a beaker, and I'll zoom in here in a second, but this beaker I've already filled it with a little bit of water. Here we have two graduated cylinders, and then third we have a triple beam balance. This may look different from what you've used or what you've seen as a triple beam balance before, but this is just for demonstration right now. I want to show you how to, or review rather, because you should have used a triple beam balance before. You should have used all of these before in science classes, but I wanted to review how to use these, how to take measurements using these, and then we'll look at the precision of each of these pieces of equipment. Okay, so here we have water in this beaker, and on the side of the beaker we have the different measurement lines, and this will tell us how much water is in that beaker. So here we see, we want to look at these increments that go from lowest at the bottom to highest at the top. All right, and so when we're measuring the amount that is in the beaker itself, use this one over here on the right side of the beaker. So here we see that there's water in the beaker already, but the amount of water is less than 100 milliliters. The water is below the 100 milliliter line. So the closest measurement that we have is that it's 100 milliliters. But that's as precise as we can get. We can estimate, and so we can kind of estimate how much it is below the 100. All right, but as far as the precision of this beaker, we can only say that it is about 100 milliliters of water. This graduated cylinder here, the graduated cylinder goes up to 100 milliliters, but we see that all of these little increments in between break it down a whole lot better than this beaker. So the increments here, this graduated cylinder is more precise than the beaker here. So if we pour this water into the graduated cylinder, we can calculate a much more precise measurement of water. Now, when you did your unit introduction, one of the things that I had you do was look at and read the measurements on a graduated cylinder, because I know that you've done that before, and in science classes before this, you've talked about looking at that meniscus. This graduated cylinder here, it's fairly good size, so we're not going to have a very large meniscus. We want to get down at the level of the graduated cylinder to figure out how much water is in this graduated cylinder. And when I do that, so each of these lines in between the numbers, so here is 70, here's 80, Each of these lines is 1 milliliter. So when I look down at the level of the water, I see that this water is 79 milliliters. So we couldn't get that level of precision here with the beaker, but we can do that with the graduated cylinder because we have increments of 1 milliliter, while the beaker only has increments of 50 milliliters. So that's as precise as we can get. Here with this graduated cylinder, we see the water that was in this beaker is 79 milliliters. Now here with this smaller beaker, or smaller graduated cylinder, we can break it down even more. With here, the numbers on this graduated cylinder are in increments of 1 milliliter. And then each of the lines in between the numbers is 0.1 milliliter. So we can break it down even more. All right. With this graduated cylinder, I cannot measure out precisely and accurately. I cannot measure out to 1/10 of a milliliter. But if I want to do that, I can with this small graduated cylinder. So if I pour a small amount, and that came out really quick, so I'm going to pour a little back. So if I pour a small amount into the small graduated cylinder, I can measure this amount of water using tenths of a milliliter. And so here, again, get down at the level, and this small graduated cylinder, this is small enough that I can see a pretty good meniscus. And I don't know if the camera's gonna give you a good view, but when I get up close, I can see a good meniscus, and I'm gonna get down at the level, and that meniscus has this at 7.4. So there are 7.4 milliliters of water in this graduated cylinder. So out of these three pieces of equipment, the beaker is the least precise, graduated cylinder is second, and the most precise is this small graduated cylinder. So that's taking measurements with the beaker and the graduated cylinder. Now over here next is the triple beam balance. The triple beam balance is one piece of equipment that you've most likely used in the past, and what I've found is it's the piece of lab equipment, measurement equipment that that gives students the most issue as far as knowing exactly how to use the measurements. All right, so here. Now this, when we start off, we want this to be balanced out. So the line here should go straight across. All right. But for purposes of what we're demonstrating, I'm going to place this graduated cylinder with a little bit of water on the balance. Now, when you're using a triple beam balance, always start with the largest increment first. We want to make large changes until we see this arm drop down to the bottom. All right, so I'm going to start, everything's over here at 0. I move it over until it clicks, and I see right away with that first click, going from 0 to 100, it already drops down. So I know that this does not have a mass more than 100 grams. So I move it back to 0. I'm going to go to the next level next, the tens. I'm going to slowly move it over, increment by increment, until I find the one that causes the arm to drop. So I'm going to move it back only one spot, and we see the arm goes back up. The arm went up a lot slower this time, so I know that I'm getting close to the correct measurement. That's why it's called a triple beam balance. There are three, well, most of them have 3 beams, and then it's balancing the mass of the object. So I'm going to come down here to the ones next, and I see I move just to 1 gram, and the arm drops down. So I move it back to 0. Arm slowly goes up. Now this triple beam balance, this one has a small 1/10 of a gram that I will slowly move over until, and it's going to make a liar out of me. So let's, there it goes. All right. And I want to move that ever so slightly until the lines match up over here. And now it's balanced, and now I can start to read my measurement. So this over here, the largest one, I read that one first. It's at 0. The tens increment, 10 grams, that one's at 50. The ones, that's on 0. So right now we have 50 grams. And then our 1/10 of a gram, we are at 0.37. So this balance is actually extremely precise. Most of the triple beam balances that I've used in the past are only precise to a 1/10 of a gram. This one is to a 1/100th of a gram. So the mass of this small cylinder with the water in it is 50.37 grams. That's a real quick demonstration of how to use these different pieces of equipment. Like I said, we'll be using these throughout the year as we do different labs, as I do demonstrations, things like that. You need to know, and the main topic of this unit is measurements. So know what accuracy is, know what precision is, and get a feel for using what I've talked about today. Get a feel for figuring out, okay, if I need to take this measurement, then I need this type of equipment. If I need to measure the volume of a liquid and I need to measure it to a 1/10 of a milliliter, I need this small graduated cylinder. If I only need to measure to the precision of 1 milliliter, this graduated cylinder will do just fine. If I need to measure out 500 milliliters of water, that's right here on this beaker. All right, so I can use my beaker to measure out 500 milliliters. Like always, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll be in my Teams, or you can always email me. That's all I have for you today. Have a great day.